to the first episode of the Roundtable Unfiltered. This is where we have no filters, just real talk and raw opinions. So today, as my first guest is Lenny Marsh from MMA Unhinged, and if you guys don't know, he's the leader, he's the CEO over there. And Lenny, thanks for coming on, man.
No, it's always a pleasure. Luke, absolutely pleasure for the invite, for getting me on. Definitely feels weird being on the other side. I feel like I should be asking you some questions, but so I'm excited to kind of sit back, relax, and see what's on offer.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely different when you're on the other side of the table, for sure. As I got the round table here. Yeah, it definitely is. Like, even for me, I even get nervous like when I've done interviews for MMA Unhinged, and it's weird because you think that you get more nervous for the people, like the bigger guests that you get on. So if you have like let's say you're interviewing like a world champion that you've always looked up to, or like someone that you really get, like you just like so much, and then you find out and you're like, okay, I got this. I got my questions ready. I'm prepared. And you go on there and you just start stumbling your words because you're so nervous. Dude, that's exactly how I felt when I interviewed Johnny Walker, man. I was so nervous.
Yeah, I've talked to some fantastic fighters in my time. You know, Mark Khan. You know, I could list them. Go Paddy Pimblett. But for me, it's always been the ones that I've kind of felt like I've connected to the most. You know, have a bit of a connection to, like people that have lived local to me that I can talk to at any time I want. That's the ones I feel like I get really nervous for because I just don't want to mess up the relationship. I feel like if I'm talking to someone that's maybe huge. Through a TV screen like this, and I'm just like, all right, okay, I can have another chance down the line somewhere else maybe, but for the people that are local, I don't want to mess up. I want to impress, especially because like I want to support the local guys more. Like I have a gym just right down the road in Sunderland, England, called TFT MMA. Fantastic fighters, Michael Parkin, obviously UFC heavyweight champion, fighting out of there. And there's just some really good guys that I love just going down to talk to. So I don't want to mess up the local guys. If I'm speaking to a guy from America or Canada, and I mess up and feel like, okay, so you know, it's only them. But for the local ones, I really want to go out and show up and impress.
Yeah, and who's that? I'm trying to think the one female player we've had on MMA and Hinge a couple times, and she just got signed by the UFC. She was
Oh,
a who's that?
Kennedy Freeman.
Yeah, Kennedy Freeman. Yeah, I wasn't surprised she got signed by the UFC, but I'm kind of surprised how quickly it happened because, to be honest with you, I wasn't sure if she would need another fight or another title defense. I know it's pretty quick how it happens with where you go from like Cage Warriors to UFC. They try to sign these people pretty quickly. And obviously she's done it really impressively, but I was a little surprised how fast it happened because it doesn't seem like I don't think she has more than 6 fights.
Yeah, I believe she's 8-0, if I'm
Oh, eight.
correct.
No, sorry. I'm stupid.
I believe so. Anyway, I could be totally wrong, but off the top of my head, I think it's maybe 8-0, maybe 6-0, something like that. But I agree with what you're saying. I think maybe she got a little bit of the fast track treatment.
Mm-hmm.
Is she ready? I think we're going to find out. I think that's the love about MMA, the love about UFC, and especially with prospects. We've just seen it on this weekend's card with Shao Bullet. We're going to find
Oh my
out if they're
gosh.
ready or not with MVP, and we're going to find out if Kennedy Freeman's the real deal. I feel like the fast track treatment came because of the second name, Freeman, Ian
Mm-hmm.
Freeman. You know, the original, the
Yeah.
machine. She's
Yeah, with
obviously the machine.
Demon. Yeah.
Having that story behind her, having that back in, I think the UFC are going to make a lot of money off her because she has that second name. It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. We're going to find out if
Well,
she's ready. I think she's definitely got the talent. She's definitely got the motivation. I see her in the gym all the time at TFT wrestling, very hard with the women that down there. So I think she's got all the meanings to go out there and really put on a good performance on the stage.
Well, and I was just gonna say, I don't want this to turn into the Lenny and Marsh MMA show,
Yeah, that's
or the Marsh and Silva MMA show. But just like I was watching some of the fights last night, I didn't watch them all, but I did see my hometown girl, Jasmine Jassavidius. She won, and to be honest with you, when she first got in, yeah, there was a lot of hype because she went from the Contender Series, and then she went from there, and I think she had a loss, and it was like you could tell almost like she took it really hard. I was like, "Ew, I was getting a little like like that's always good to see when you see someone mentally broke or not mentally broken, but you see someone take a loss hard. You got to wonder how sharp and strong are they mentally. But like honestly, ever since I think she's only had one loss in the UFC, I believe, and she just looks better in each fight. She looks more complete in each fight, and obviously her wrestling and jiu-jitsu is like probably her strongest asset there. But just seeing like someone who coming from my area in Ontario, it's cool to kind of see a lot of Ontarian fighters be able to kind of because she's out from Niagara Falls or St. Catharines anyway, and it's cool to kind of see like even for yourself, like you got like local fighters getting into the UFC as well, and it's cool to kind of see all these like local fighters not just getting into the UFC, but they're becoming very successful. Like her, I think she's jumping into maybe under the number 10 spot. Like, I think she might be an 8 or 7 after this fight. I'm not too sure. But yeah, it was crazy. And she took on a really tough opponent too. Like I was like looking at this fight, like this is gonna be her toughest opponent yet. And I mean that's usually how it goes, right? Every opponent you get in the top 10, they just get more tough and more tougher and tougher. But for me, I was looking at this fight, I'm like, this is gonna be tough because this girl is, you know, she's really, really good. And I was just worried, but yeah, no, she came in and she won convincingly, and it's really cool. It's neat. I get more appreciation watching fighters that I know getting those wins and becoming more successful than just seeing someone that's just a hype train, right? Like I get it. I mean, I'm just gonna throw Patty the Batty out there. I get it. For all UK fans, I get it. I know people like watch him fight. I think he's annoying as hell, but I get it. I know that's just where he's from, and I get it. Um, I don't mean annoying in an ignorant way. I just mean annoying. Like he's just. I think it's just like it's part of the UFC. I think they give him so much exposure, and it's almost like they're trying to build off that. They're trying to make money off his character, and I don't know. That's just my opinion, but like I said, this is why we have raw opinions, and yeah, man.
I definitely agree, and I think it is definitely part of the game. I think Paddy plays it well. Obviously, he talks very well, markets himself very well. There was once upon a time a brash Irishman who did it fantastically and made millions, if not billions, from basically what he did in the UFC. And we won't
Pretty
talk about what
much.
he did after that because he's an absolute SCUM. But we'll talk about that maybe at a different time or maybe later. How the downfall of Conor McGregor needs to be studied. But yes, Paddy Pimblett, yeah, he marks himself very well. Let's see how far he can go. I feel like he's getting better every single fight, but I still feel like there is going to be someone that catches him up, and I think we're going to see that very soon. I still think he lost against Jared Gunn, to be honest.
Yeah, and another thing I wanted to ask you. So for MMA Unhinged, you've done probably the most out of in-person interviews. So when you're doing your interviews, and I know you've done a couple with Freeman there. So when you do these interviews, like, do you have something like written down, or are you just able to have everything locked in?
Yeah, so what I do is I've been doing this when I started off early, it was like I had like 10, 15 questions and I'd go to this interview. And I think there was just one interview where I just thought, what am I doing? I know this person who I'm talking to. And that was the switch for me. I was like, I know
Yeah,
who I'm talking to. I know pace. I know it might sound like really scary or whatever. I know everything about them because I've been maybe watching them and studying them for a while, because they're local and I've been watching, the grow up every single fight. I might have been to a
yeah,
show a few times and watched them fight live, and that was it. I think I went to a Charles Joyner interview, who was at fights out of Sunderland TFT MMA, and I just went to the interview and said, I'm not going to get any questions because I know literally everything about this guy. I know who's going to fight. I know when he's going to fight. I know his last fight because I was there watching it. I know how he fights. I know his style. I know his coaches. Me and his coaches get on. And I just knew everything about him. And I was just like, I'm not taking any questions. Let's just see how it goes. I had an idea of what I wanted to speak about, and if we got off trail, then I could sort of bring it back. But yeah, absolutely no questions at all now whatsoever. I've got an interview after this with Dennis Frimpong, which will get coming out on the MMA on his YouTube channel. I'm getting back to interviews. I've got back off track because obviously something I go to university as well, so I got bail off university. It was a assessment season, should we say, assignment season, but now I'm getting back. So yeah, Dennis Frimpong interview after this, no questions because as again, I just sort of know a lot about him and I just kind of go off my head.
well, and that's pretty neat, man. And that brings up another thing is I just saw that MMA Island just came back. I think they had this big issue. Like I think they got hacked. Correct me if I'm wrong. They got hacked, right?
It was a weird
It was a
weird
weird
scenario
fucking
for
yeah.
them.
It was a weird fucking
There
thing.
was
Yeah.
a guy. that I believe maybe kind of worked with Mma, and that sort of locked out Christia Santiago. I forgot his name, Christia Santiago, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
He locked him out of the account and sort of never gave him the account back. And then said he was going to sell him back, or he was going to give it him back, etc. He just needs the password, and just sort of never gave it him back until now, where I believe Christopher has now got back into the island account, so which is good to see. Bit of a scumbag move from the other guys. So
Yeah, you know what though, like that's a scary thing is like when you have because I would consider them like a legit company. I mean, anybody that wants to do MMA like pages on Instagram or whatever you got your social media, like they're all legit. But I think they're at that point where they're paying people and they're at that stage where they're obviously at that tier level. And that's a scary thing is when you have like an agency like that, you've got to be really careful what kind of journalists you're hiring. Not just with that, but you just get a lot of things like people falling out or people not wanting to commit, and that can be really difficult. Um, and I like, but then we've seen a lot of successful people. Like obviously, Chris is one who's been really successful. He's done a lot of great things, but then I think he stayed out of the spotlight a little bit because of all that stuff. But then you have Dylan Rush, who just kind of just jumped out of nowhere. He was doing a lot of Bellator local stuff, which is cool, and I respect that. And then out of nowhere, I think he knew how to kind of put himself out there and kind of become, good buddies with a lot of fighters. And now I think he's working
Henry Cejudo,
Cejudo. That's pretty awesome. I still gotta ask him what exactly he does. I don't know if he's like his publicist or like
producer.
what he is that what he does?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's pretty.
Dylan Rush is what he's done in this short amount of time that he's been inside the game is just absolutely fantastic. This
I
guy
think the
needs to be
care.
proud of how he's got to where he is so quick. This guy is amazing.
Yeah,
If you're a new up and comer that wants to get in MMA media, highly recommend looking at his channel. He's a fantastic journalist, and kind of utilized every relationship he has in this game really, really well, and took an opportunity at where a lot of people might think, "Oh, man, that's a big risk." He didn't think about that. I think he left his house at 3 a.m. in the morning, 4 a.m. in the morning, left a note on his bed to his mum and dad and said, "I've got to take this opportunity. It's now or never." And then that's what he did.
yeah, I think he did, and he left at like 4. Yeah, it was like 3 or 4 in the morning, and he left the note. And then he also, yeah, and then he took a last minute flight somewhere to just do this
Arizona.
opportunity. And now he's out all about. However, that comes with a price, man. Like that comes with the kind of work he does because he's always traveling with Cejudo and he's doing all that stuff, which is cool. So those are the pros, right? You're able to go travel. You're able to go do things that you never thought were possible for yourself. You have opportunities to meet a lot of great people. I think he's went to dinner with obviously with Cejudo and then a couple celebrities. Like nothing like crazy. You're not going out there with Tom Cruise by any means, but like you're going with some like maybe TV celebrities, guys like that. I think I've seen, and then you're also going like you're flying to. I think he flew to a couple like the fights that were maybe in like Saudi Arabia. I think he's done some stuff like that. And if
He
you're
even
willing to
watched,
go,
he even watched the Dirty Boxing event, which was a
I
private event.
Yeah, I think he did. Yeah, that's pretty sweet. And the fact that you're able to do those things, I mean that those are the pros of the game, right? The cons is like you're staying away from your family. I don't know how old he is. He's probably I'm gonna give a hunch maybe he's about anywhere from 20 to 24 years old. And I mean if he's got a girlfriend, he's got a he's got a piece on the side. I'm just saying right now, he's yeah, that's hard to stay away from, man. Like that's hard to be away from your family or if he was even older, like if you're a family man, that's things you got to really think about. But at the end of the day, he's got himself a good opportunity, and happy for him, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Took, as I mentioned earlier, took every opportunity with everything he has, and kudos to him. Went out there. Now he's a producer with Henry Cejudo, former double champion, or
Yeah,
challenger. Champion inside the UFC. I feel like the cons as well is you don't know how long left Cejudo's got in this game. To be honest, and, one more loss could be a scrap. But that obviously he shouldn't be thinking like that. Henry Cejudo is fantastic, and he's got a great fight coming up. I can't remember who it was against. Off the top of my head. So
is it Corey? Is it Corey Sanhagen? Or no,
am I?
maybe not. I don't know. It's somewhere in there. I mean, he's not fighting anybody outside the top 15. So if
Yeah,
you think about somebody in the top 10, he's fighting them. I don't know.
yeah,
That's
and
the
think
problem, man.
Dylan's going to be able to have an opportunity to go out there with him into the UFC sort of space yet again, get his face out inside. I know he's already in that space because obviously he works with UFC embedded as well. So
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty sweet too, and that's where when people talk about jumping on opportunities and jumping and just being able to put yourself out there, that's what they're talking about. It's like situations where sometimes it is risky, but when you do it, sometimes it really does pay off. And this is a really good example. So yeah, man, like that's one of the stories I watch and I'm like, that's just awesome. But yeah, man. So how are things anyway? Like, I mean, like besides here, since I have you on the podcast here, we actually really haven't been chatting lately. So you're in university right now. How's that going?
yeah, just studying at Sunderland University, sports journalism. Coming to it nearly the end of my second year. I've still got a few more months left, but sort of the tail end now. Summer's coming up. That's when we have the big break, etc. And then we go into the third year. But yeah, it's going well. I'm excited. I'm just excited to see where this journey takes me. That's all it's all about, really. I don't know where I'm going to end up. And that's what I like. I could be anywhere. I really could. There was a guy that came into the university maybe a few months ago, and he said after he'd done the Sunderland University course, he was sort of like me. He was a sports journalism graduate, and he went to New Zealand and he started doing some sports journalism over there. And I just thought, you know what? I really wouldn't mind that. So that's where I'd probably would like to end up somewhere abroad, studying or maybe learning about some big sport over there. I think my dream would be in Thailand. I feel like I could go to a Muay Thai show over there every weekend and just sort of watch some good traditional fights. I think that's what I'd love. Living in Thailand as well could be cheap. Um, yeah, I think that's what I'd like to do over there in one championship. I'd like to maybe cover that as well. I think over there, I think the fans are there are crazy as well. I'd love to go over there.
Would you ever consider going to Japan?
Japan, and you know what? I have a lot
Did
of
you watch the episode with Shorty and I? He was talking about Japan. He said, "Man, it's awesome. Like, they're so much more advanced than the United States or any Western. Like, it's crazy how much things are different, and it's so much better over there, especially fried chicken."
you you always learn about you always get told about how advanced Japan is, but I don't think you would actually realize it until you actually go over there and like, sort of see it all for yourself. I think I've watched like loads of travel videos. I like watching travel YouTubers. There's some in the UK called there's like there's loads of good ones to name, but they go over to Japan. There's like they have like a vending machine for everything. They have like robots as waiters, like it's pretty crazy out there. So Japan are definitely
I
living
know
in a
it's
different
crazy.
world to us. So skyscrapers everywhere, advertisement boards. It's definitely it definitely would be great over there. But yeah, I think for me it would be like somewhere in Thailand or like Singapore or something like that. That would be quite nice.
You know what's crazy is like every country has some kind of tourism. So if you look at Japan, Japan's very tech, very everything's big tech, and it's crazy. And it's like one of those things where I don't feel it doesn't get commercialized as much. Like when you go, you think about Japan, yeah, you think about their technology and how wicked, crazy everything is over there, but you don't really see it advertised. But if you go to somewhere, if you want to go, let's say you go to Abu Dhabi, right? You're expected to know that everything's gonna be really expensive, everything's gonna be really nice. You're gonna have a lot of water. That's what you're going in. That's your tourism. For example, if I went to England, I would love to go over there because of the history and just because England is very one of the Britain is one of the biggest was one of the biggest empires of all time. It's cool to go back there and for me, I love to go to I love to visit England, but more importantly, I love to probably visit Scotland or Ireland. I think those are sites that are one of those countries that you go there and he never you experience it and it's hard to replicate, and for me, I definitely want to go to England. I think it's not just the historical factor, but everything in England. It's so. I mean, so I had somebody at my work, right? So he's from India, right? And I was talking to him about the difference between like the United States and Canada. And I said we're so similar, but we're so different at the same time. He's like, "Well, what do you mean?" And I said, "Well, like the difference is like, or the similarities is mostly, we're both English speaking countries. Everything's good. But a lot of food can be the same as Canada, but their food is different. And he's like, oh, and he asked me a question. It's like, asked me again. He's like, what do you mean by that? And I said, okay, so what I mean is, again, it's like, for example, like you could have a certain cereal, for example, and they're both labeled the same, but they taste completely different. The consistency could be different, right? And then, or like for example, like things are just done differently in the United States. The currency is a little bit different in a sense. Like actually, their dollar is worth more. But if you look at somewhere like the UK, and obviously, well, I think we'll agree on this, is we're so similar. Like we both can speak English, but obviously different accents. You guys have the better accent, but like everything's different and things are done differently over there, and obviously the currency is different and things cost certain ways, and your food's different for sure. There's traditions that are different, or there's traditions that are very old traditions. I should say. It's just crazy how things are so much different. So I think going to England or going somewhere like England, Scotland, Ireland for sure is something that I like to experience for the tradition and the culture, and just how like people talk about the typical, oh, you go and have your English breakfast and it's like, or you go and have your traditional fish and chips and it's like, yeah, but like I can eat it here, I'm sure it's good, but I'm sure if I go somewhere in England it would be amazing. So for you, have you had a place that you really want to visit?
It's funny how you look at you were talking about England there. You talk about how this, this whole historical, and obviously the way you say it, obviously it probably is. The way I look at it is completely different. Like, it's a bit of a dump. It's a bit of a shithole. Everybody is like that. How they are at home. You probably. I know you live in Canada. Might be different. But I feel like everyone's like, oh, yeah, it's a bit of a shithole. Yeah, I'd love to move away. That is literally how I look at it. I said I would love to move, and I think if I wanted to move somewhere, I talked about it, so many times. It's probably Australia. I think it's quite similar to the UK. You got better weather. I think over there people are sort of similar in terms of banter and how we look at the style of life. Everyone's over there who loves a bit of a drink as well, so it kind of works. So I think Australia would be good because it's quite similar to kind of England.
Well, what's really interesting too is like you brought up a lot of good points too. So like for me, I just like the fact like you talking about England being a shithole, and I understand England has their problems. They have their political problems, and we have our political problems. Not very far off, to be honest with you. But like at least for England, for me, and tell me if I'm wrong. Is it more what people think they're gonna see? But like I find like a lot of like you look at a lot of homes and the way they're designed in England, or depending on where you're from in England, but they're all designed very old. Like everything looks very old. Like the way that the layout looks, because you come to Canada, in Canada, America, the housing is pretty similar. Like the designs are similar. Obviously, you get new builds. You have a new idea about how houses like to look. But I look in like pictures of like neighborhoods in England, and they're all like the same, all brick, all that like that certain style, all like tall and like I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's just what they want to show you, and that's not how it is. But I just want to see like everything being different. So I like to just go in with a clear mind, just go in acting like if I'm ignorant as shit, not know anything, and just have people correct me the whole time. Like I'll ask, be like, yeah, can I go do this? Or like for example, like I'll ask for something and they're gonna look at me like I'm stupid, and they're like, what? What do you want? Like, and then they have to like correct me with the wording. I just want to go in and just experience that and just be corrected the whole time. And but the problem is, man, I hate flying. That's where I'm being stopped right there. Is I hate flying. I hate flying. We go to my wife and I, we are her family, we go to Florida every March after March break, which is I don't know if you know what March break is, but it's a American Canadian thing, or is it just a Canadian thing? I might be wrong with that too, but it definitely in Canada we have a thing called March break, and I think the Americans call it spring break, and it's just a break for a week for kids to get out of school, which I don't actually understand why they need the break, but um because when you become an adult, you don't get any breaks actually. And yeah, so with March break, you have March break, and then we usually leave the Friday or Saturday of March break, and then we'll go like the for a week after, where all the flights aren't crazy, and yeah, man, it's but anyway, we fly there, and I absolutely hate just doing like a 2.5 or 3 hour flight. I hate flying, man. I hate it. It's not I think I got over my fear of flying. So there's a difference. I'm not so much afraid of flying anymore. I just don't like the feeling of being in the plane, if that makes any sense. I don't like the feeling of the jerking. I don't like the feeling of being strapped in, not having control. But I'm not afraid to fly. I can dart my ass to the tarmac. Like I can dart my ass into the plane, no problem. But it's like when you're up in the air, I'm like waiting for it to land. So people might say I'm afraid, but I just call it no. I just don't like it. There's a difference. I feel.
Yeah, I understand. For me, it's been totally different. I think from a young age, I've been quite lucky to go on holiday quite a lot. Whether from like maybe one, two, I was on a plane. So my family used to go like Greece every year, or we used to go Spain. So I was sort of on a plane nearly every year. Growing up, and that's not stopped as well. Really, I had a bit of a break during my teens, but since I turned 18, I've been sort of trying to get out every year. I've got out 3 times last year, which for me was just fantastic. I went to Poland, I went to Turkey, and I went to Tenerife, so that's Spain. So for me, this year it's Turkey, and the next year I will be going to Florida, and that will be in June time. I know the World Cup is
Respect.
over there at the same time, and I just can't fucking wait because it's gonna be fucking brilliant. I will be in the sport bars, drinking Modelo's, necking every tequila that I have in hand, and sort of just embracing the American culture. I'm looking forward to it. As you talked about, and coming to England, just sort of being,
Yeah.
being corrected. I'm looking forward to that as well. I'm looking forward to kind of just seeing what it's about over there in America. I am. I'm looking forward to see what's going on.
I think you're gonna adjust very much better if you came to America versus me going to England, because you're no stranger to traveling. So I think you've done enough, and correct me if I'm wrong. I think based off what I've seen, Lenny, you traveled so much that you've gone to enough unfamiliar places that have different customs enough that so when you get put in those situations, there's no awkwardness. You just kind of ride with it. Whereas if you get someone who never really traveled before and they make one big trip, I'm gonna say someone from Canada goes to somewhere, I don't know. I can't think, like everything. I mean, everything, like the whole world's universal now. Like everybody speaks English. Everybody, like you can kind of get a cheeseburger anywhere you want, right? But like for example, if you had someone from Canada and they never really traveled, they might have done little trips, things like that. But if they never gone anywhere outside Canada and they just automatically shoot it over to somewhere, let's say they go somewhere in Europe, they're gonna go in for a culture shock, and they're not gonna understand how to get out of their comfort zone, and it's going to show, right? Whereas for you, Lenny, you said you've been to Poland. You said you're going to uh
I've been to Turkey. I've been to Turkey loads of times.
yeah,
I've been to
Turkey.
Spain loads of
Like obviously,
times.
yeah. So like you've been able to go different places, and obviously you're not going to go in knowing where to go or what to expect, but you put yourself in so many different unfamiliar situation. So when you decide to go to Turkey and when you're going to go to the United States, I feel like, man, when you go to the States, you'll have no problem over there. Everyone's cool. I don't know how they feel about English people, but they definitely don't mind Canadians. So if they don't mind Canadians, you're probably gonna be all right.
Yeah,
But the same
I'll be
thing.
okay.
But same
I'm
thing,
not
man.
like
Like,
an argumentative person either. I'm not going to be like, oh mate, yeah, we beat you in the battle, whatever. I don't really care, to be honest. I'm here for a drink. Like that's it, really. I'm here for a pint. That's about it.
yeah, exactly. And you know what too? Like I even growing up, so there's different things about the United States, right? Like England, you'd say like obviously different parts of England, people are gonna have different accents and people are gonna have different mannerisms, right? But if you go to the United States, it's kind of the same thing, but well, accents is one, but there's different ways of how like things are done too. So when you go in the southern states, man, it's like people talk a certain way, they carry themselves a certain way. It's crazy, man. Like I really enjoy going to southern states because just the way people talk, the mannerisms. Like I love so. my family and I, we went to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, many times. It's a big thing in Tennessee. Or if you go to Nashville, Tennessee, that's a big one too. I just love going there because everyone's just easygoing. Everyone's shooting back whiskey. It's good times. And but yeah, man, you going to Florida though, I think you're gonna really enjoy it. Whereabouts are you going to Orlando?
We are indeed. And I'll bring back to the point of being able to adjust really quickly. I think for me, it's just being just trying to get straight into someone else's culture straight away is so easy because as I mentioned, I've been to Poland, sort of embracing
Hmm.
there. You just sort of want to not fit in as a local, but I've been to Rome before. Just try and traditional Italian dishes, pasta, you name it,
Yeah,
pizza. Went over to Poland and just tried a little bit of their traditional dishes. Didn't really like it that much, but just giving it a go, just giving it, and I would truly, truly recommend that because you don't know how long you got left, and I don't want to go dark in here, but you don't know how long you got left. You kind of want to see everything in the world. I think when I'm all said and done, I want to see most of the world. I want to see at least the seven wonders of the world. I think that's what I want to do. I want to go to so many different places. I got a whole list, but and as I mentioned, I don't mind traveling, and I would recommend that for you as well, Luke. I feel like you should probably try and get yourself out there and explore it because I feel like once you get on the other end, you'll be like, wow, this is sick. I love it, and that's what you've always got to have in mind in the back of your head. Like this might take 2, 3, or 4 or 5 hours, but at the end of this, for me, at the end of it's an 8 hour, I think, flight for me to get to Florida. And I'm like, absolutely,
that's
yes, let's do it. But I'm just thinking in my head, at the end of it, I get off in Florida instead of England. That's it.
and I think like that's the way you kind of have to put your mind into it. You're exactly right. Like you have to be able to like for me, I don't like flying, but I know after the 2 hour, I don't really, it's usually anywhere my flights and like going to Florida from Detroit, Michigan, it goes probably anywhere from like just 2 hours to maybe two and a half. It's never really been three, unless like you do two, like if you do like a connecting flight, like I've done it where I've flown from Michigan to Atlanta. And then by the time, with obviously going up in the air, staying in the air, going down, and all that, it does add more time. So I've done like 3 hour flights as a whole, but for the most part, they've always been about 2 hours. And I just know I get through the 2 hours and then I land in and I'm in somewhere warm because it's always like once we get our winter here, it's just cold as shit. And it's, yeah, you know what? I shouldn't be saying shit because obviously I sometimes look up the weather. I remember we were supposed to do. You guys had me on the Marcin Silva MMA show the one time, and I was like, I wonder how things are going over in Newcastle right now. I'm looking at the weather, and it's just fucking rain all week. I'm like, yep, that sounds about right in England there. Cheerful rain there. So, Vladdy
The,
well.
fun- the fun thing about England is you get one good day of weather every year, and as soon as that one good day of weather is out, everybody is out with their tops off. Everybody doesn't matter if you're fat, you're skinny, or whatever you are. And that's what I like about the British culture, and that's what you'll get nowhere else. Everybody's gonna have a barbecue. Everybody's at the beach, and everyone's just fucking having a good time. And
Mhm.
that's what it is about the British weather. You get one good day a year, pretty much. I can't even remember a good day last year, to be honest. But the summer, I think we had a heat wave last year. I think I was actually swimming in the sea at like 3 a.m. in the morning, so that was quite cool.
That's pretty sweet, man. And that's the thing. So we talk about weather and how it affects people, and but at least you talk about that in England. Here, it's a typical thing in Canada. At least where I'm from. So we have a thing called snowbirds. I don't know if you've ever heard that term, snowbirds. So what it is you got people that live here, and typically snowbirds are old people because they can afford to do this, who are retired. So what happens is in the wintertime, so okay, so they go buy, let's say they buy a condo or they buy a place or a cottage somewhere in Florida, because Florida is your typical going away in the winter kind of hot spot, right? So they'll buy a place there or they'll rent a place, so they have a timeshare and they'll have one in Florida, for example. Well, in the wintertime, what they do, and because they have the money and they're retired and they have the time, they'll leave for like a month in December or usually January, because you want to get through Christmas, right? But in January to February or something, they'll leave for like 2 months and they'll live in Florida and just you do exactly what they were doing before. Just you're in the heat and you're not dealing with the crappy weather like the rest of us lonely peasants here. And yeah, man, it's and then by March is kind of a it could be a fuck you day or it could be like, hey, spring's here. And then you could have a day where it's great and then it snows like the next day. And it's like, oh, is that spring? Is that you? Oh no, okay, fuck you. Then we're back to winter. So it's and then by April we're usually pretty good, and then May warm. April can be warm, May can be warm, and then June is pretty much you're in summer. It's a guarantee that you're in summer.
Does it get quite hot in June, July, and stuff there?
So typically, like our normal in Canada, it's probably I would say in at least I mean because June we've had days in June that was hot. I think last summer was pretty hot, and the summer before it was really hot. But we've had some days in June that's hot. But June is usually your typical. Once you get halfway through June, is probably 25 Celsius is your typical. July is anywhere from 25 to 35. August can August should be our hottest, but for whatever reason, by you get about halfway through August, and it's anywhere from like 20 to 25 for whatever reason. And then obviously our nights get colder when you get closer to August. Just that's just how it goes. But July is like the hottest month where it's hot at night and it's hot in the day, but it's not uncomfortable hot. Because I thought, oh, this is hot weather. Well, my first year going to Florida with my wife and her family, I just happened to go on a day that was really hot, or on a week that was really really hot in Florida, and we were in Orlando, and it was so hot that even the air, like everything was hot. The humidity was hot. Like just sitting in the sun, and I was in the shade, and even the shade wasn't helping. I was just sitting there sweating buckets, man, and I was jumping. I was hopping in the pool every like 5-10 minutes and sitting in the pool for like 30 minutes to cool down. That's just how hot it was. So people say, "Oh, it's so hot in Canada." Well, like go to fucking Florida, go to like somewhere like in the dude. Actually, no, I'll tell you what beats that. So my wife and I on our honeymoon, we went on a southern cruise, and we decided, hey, we're gonna go on a southern cruise in August, at the beginning of August. So we went to Aruba. We went to oh geez, we went to a few places. I can't remember them all off the top of my head on the spotlight here, but we went to a few places. And I'm telling you, man, it was about 106, 107 every day, even on the boat, and you just couldn't escape the heat. Like you're just sitting there sweating. Like I'm even in the, like we're in the shade, we're having our lunch or whatever, and I'm just like I'm just sweating constantly, and like,
I love it.
and that's when you know it's fucking hot. That's when you
Yeah,
know that's heat. That's heat, brother. Like that's not just summer. That is just strictly you're in fucking hell. That's
yeah.
that's where
And
you're
if you have
that's where you're
the
at.
opportunity, that reminds me of going to Turkey in June, July, or August,
It's
whenever.
hot.
Because Turkey is absolutely roasting in during the summer. I don't know how to explain it, but like it can go to 35 degrees Celsius to 40 degrees Celsius. Like it's pretty hot. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but it get absolutely ridiculously hot. And as you talk about, you're just sitting on a sunbed and you're just sweating from places that you've never ever even sweated before. And you're thinking, how the fuck am I sweating from there? Like, it doesn't
You,
make any sense. And
yeah, like
what you
that's
gonna
literally it's like as hot as it gets. You don't even have to have a sauna if you ever cut and wait for a fight. You just hey go take a southern cruise for a week and then you'll cut all the weight you need. Like it's crazy, man.
Yeah, I said, get your pad man out there, start doing some pad work on the boat. On the boat.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
funny.
So anyway, man, like so how are like besides that, how are things? Like how are you I wanted to ask you, and I tried to avoid it because I didn't want to make it obvious, but for you with MMA Unhinged, you started this company a while back. Was it COVID that started the whole situation, or how did it come in? Like how did you well like what started the idea, and then was it you and Ben doing it together, or did you start it and then you added Ben to the mix? How did this
Yeah, it
get
was just me
started?
and my friend at college actually. Ben didn't really get into the mix. It was just me and my friend at college, and we kind of sort of started the idea. And that sort of played out. That sort of fizzled out as well. Then it was just sort of me at a time, and I was just like, well, I'm just going to carry on doing my thing, just interviewing these different people, getting some relationships together, and that was pretty much it. And then sort of Oscar came on. We did our little podcast, and that's been going for a few years now. So I'm just trying to get experience out in front of the camera. That's literally what I'm looking to do with Mma Unhinged. Just try and get some experience in front of the camera. Just sort of getting every relationship I can, talk to anyone I can. Just sort of trying to build some sort of network. So when I'm out there,
Yeah.
and I've signed for a paper, I've signed for a network or whatever, I sort of have a good relationship with pretty much everyone that I want to talk to or bring on. And that's what I want people to look at me and think like, Lenny March, I've spoke to him before, fantastic, I'll speak to him again. That's what I want to do.
Yeah, so you did work briefly for that one promotion, right, in the UK? Was it? Or it was just a European it was a European,
European
promotion.
Yes, I worked for Octagon MMA for about a year. That sort of fizzled out. Whole I could go into a lot about what happened, but I
No, no,
want to
no,
keep
no, hey,
it.
this is the unfiltered, you can say whatever you want. Like,
Yeah,
you don't work for him anymore. Go ahead.
be professional, just in case you never know, someone might watch.
Okay,
And
keep it
there is
professional,
no bridges
alright,
burnt.
alright.
There is no bridges burnt. The relationship is still kind of sort of there. But yeah, I had a great time at Octagon. I loved every second of it. They sort of came over to England looking to expand their network from obviously they're huge. I don't know if you've ever watched an Octagon MMA event, but they are huge in Czech, Slovakia, Germany now. And I think I don't know whether this has been aired or not. I believe they're going to look to go to Bulgaria. That could I don't know whether that's been confirmed or not. I might have just broke that out, but yeah, they are looking to sort of go out there and do a lot of things, especially in that European market. I know Spain as well is looking to go there as well. But yeah, I worked for there for about a year. They tried to come over to the UK. We had 3 events or 4 events. They came over with Manchester firstly, and I went to that one as media. I was there as media in Manchester, and I was like, they're pretty. This is a pretty big ordeal. Looking at their production,
Mhm.
but then I sort of looked at the people that they had on the fight card, and I was just like, it wasn't really playing out to what how big they really wanted to be. Obviously, no disrespect to who other fighters they had on the card. I think they were main eventing or co-main eventing with 2 comedians or a reality TV star. And I just thought to myself, if this is the way you want to enter the UK market, probably not the greatest idea. You need to really come over here and
Yeah.
have some sort of seriousness about it. I think the
Well, and that's
UK is
just it.
yeah, I feel like the UK want to have some sort of seriousness now and not sort of look at it as an influencer company or influencer taking the mic. You got to be serious. And then they had Then they had an event in Newcastle, then Birmingham, and that was the end of it. After Birmingham, they sort of stopped all UK events, and unfortunately, that was pretty much my end of my contract. Then, so I had a great time there. It was a good learning experience. I feel like it was a good taster into when I get to the future, and there might be another opportunity like that. I
Mhm.
sort of know what to expect already because I've been in that position. I know how the industry works behind the scenes and stuff now. So it's a very cutthroat industry. There's a lot of people out there inside the industry, inside the company that are very, very hard to deal with. Especially in Octagon MMA, there was a few people hard to deal with.
Well, so what exactly did you do for them? Like, was it so I know you're a journalist, but like, was it like, did you do like paperwork for them? Like, what exactly, or did you provide all the interviews for all the fighters? Were you the guy? Like,
No, no. So for them, I did social media coordinator. I was helping with the UK side of things. There was me and another guy called Andros that used to work there. That still works there.
yeah,
Sorry. Me and him sort of just kind of helped each other out and played it all out. We used to help with the Instagram. Look at that cat, by the way. I used to help with the
yes,
Instagram, the TikTok, Facebook, etc. And we just kind of worked out between us. So we kind of did all that. So yeah, I was kind of basically an assistant to Andros, and Andros was just he was the main guy that I was like, yeah, this guy's good. I love watching
yeah,
his work now. He works still with Octagon, but he's on like the bigger page and stuff like that. He was the guy that was very helpful. As soon when I came into the company at the start, he was straight away texting me. He was like, this is how it is in this company, and you are soon to find out. So, and it was just great. I liked it. He was a great man. Some some people were hard to deal with, as I mentioned. But no
Yeah.
bridges burnt. Maybe down the line in the future. I don't think they'll ever return to the UK, so it might have to be some sort of different role, maybe.
Well, brother, I would have to say you've been really fortunate with having a lot of events, like especially in Newcastle. Obviously, you get the PFL that's done a lot of stuff there as well. I think really you've been really lucky to have it, and obviously you get Chanel Dyer that's just lit up the PFL Europe, and obviously she went into the regular PFL season. I think you've just been fortunate to have a lot of great people, not just to interview, but to also build a little bit of a rapport and relationship with. Like, obviously, I know you've done a lot of stuff. We've done a lot of stuff with Chanel Dyer, you specifically, and it's really cool to be able to have them keep coming back. And you're not just chatting with somebody that's there to come fight, right? Like she's someone hometown grown, like she's and it's cool to just be able to have that consistency. Whereas for me, I'm kind of chasing these promotions, and I'm just hoping that I don't have to travel far. And like for example, I've been trying to work with Unified MMA, um, and they've been a hard promotion to do because they do most of their shows in Toronto, and that's about Toronto is like or Toronto, Ottawa, and I mean Toronto alone's maybe 3.5 hours away from me. And a lot of people think, well, that's just a 3 hour drive. It's like, yeah, but once you get through the first hour and a half, you're like, you stop halfway and you're thinking, fuck it, I'm not flying, I'm not driving anymore. And Toronto also is just a nightmare to drive in because um, it's a busy city. It's got like I think a population of like 2.5 million people. Like, I probably not that many, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was the official number. And so for me, trying to chase these promotions down and trying to cover these ones in person is just it's hard, man. It really is. And I've tried to do like other promotions, but it's just hard because they're doing the promotions in the same cities, which I understand because clearly that's where they're gaining their success and audience from. But it gets to the point where it's like, come on, can you do it somewhere different? So and also it's all about availability where they can have the venues and whatnot. But for me, I know BTC, they're coming back to London, Ontario, I should say, London, Ontario. And they're coming back there. So I think that's going to be a really good one. I think I'll be able to cover MMA Unhinged over there. But yeah, man, it's hard to work with promotions because now it seems like, and I don't mean to disrespect any other people that want to chase the dream of being a journalist, but now it seems like everybody thinks that they're going to be a journalist now, and then you're like competing with people. And luckily, the one BTC show I did, it was just me. And I don't know if do you follow Dark Horse MMA?
Yes, I think I've definitely seen him on Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah, he's actually he doesn't live too far from away from me, and he was there, and it was cool. And actually, I'm planning on trying to have him on the podcast as well soon. Just trying to get in the talks with him, and hopefully I can work something out. But yeah, man, it's yeah, I'm excited to see where it's gonna go. Um, but yeah, man, that's the thing, right? Like I think UK MMA is becoming such a big thing, and you're getting so many promotions out that way. And obviously, with the UFC, they've had ties going to England. Obviously, with UFC 305, was it? It was 306. It was something like that when you had Bilal defend his title, and then you had your boy there defend his interim title as well. Um, yeah, I think you've been really fortunate to have a lot of those promotions that kept you busy in person as well.
Yeah, I mean, England is a very small country, but very big in terms of combat sports. We've got some of the best fighters in the world. As you mentioned there, Tom Aspinall. Obviously, Leon Edwards lost his belt that night, but
Yeah,
even in terms of like boxing, Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, etc., you name it. I feel like we have some sort of really good sort of big names. Even if we're
yeah,
talking about Formula One, we've got Lewis Hamilton, we've got Lando Norris, we've got George Russell. Like in every single sport, we might be a small country, but I feel like in terms of whatever sport it is, I think we're definitely got a name up there somewhere. But really, we're really good at football. Rugby we're
of
pretty good at
course.
as well. Cricket we're pretty decent at as well. So for a small country, I think we do quite well to kind of sort of get a name out there.
Well, and it's wild how when you look at the UK and how big like the M like the what I should say the British Empire was at one time, and now you guys are just this little spot on the map, and it's like but there's so much more to you than there is. Like you look at Canada, and Canada is humongous, but Canada is so humongous, but we're like this, right? Well, in terms of like the pride, the sports and everything. Like obviously we're known for our hockey, and that's great, but we're it's almost like UK is so small, but you have UK here, right? But this is UK in terms of like the sports and the how much the fans are into their sports, the sports that they know and they're prideful with, and it's crazy how you don't need to be a big country to have that, to have all to have the fans into it. And I would say you obviously Canada. You said we're talking about UFC. When UFC does a lot of events, I don't know if it's so much because Canada is not a place they go to often, but every time they come to Canada, and I don't mean to, I'm not going to have a rival with UK here with the UK fans, but when they come to Canada, they gets loud and it's great, and you hear nothing but fuck Trudeau every time. So if that doesn't tell you anymore how much where the country's heading, it's that's true Canadian fans right there, and the whole arena is just chanting it. So it's great to hear, but I still think there's nothing beats the UK crowd. There's just something about the UK crowd, especially when Paddy the Baddy's fighting. It just you see the fans just get fucking riled. It's great to see, and it's cool. It's almost like you just want to be like pack your bags and like I'm flying over to the next event.
Have you ever met a British person like out in the wild over in Canada?
I have. So there's a well, she wasn't British. She was Scottish, but I think
Close.
UK. It's in the UK realm. Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, I have met somebody. She was oh geez, I'm trying to think because there's so many little places. I Surrey.
Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That's how you say it, right?
Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she was from Sorry, and yeah, and
And is that
I asked, and I always felt bad because like I'm always like because as soon as someone has an accent, I gotta ask where they're from because I love the accent. I love how like where people how people talk, and but I'll tell you, man, I'm gonna tell you right now, for the first couple bit of the conversation, she was just working at some shop, and I could not understand half the shit she was talking about. Like, I mean, I get what she was getting at, but like there was a couple of words that were like spaced out. So I got the first part of the sentence, then there'll be a couple words, and I'm kind of looking at her sideways, like what? And then I get the rest. So I kind of could put the pieces together and know what she was talking about. But yeah, the first little bit, and then I finally said, okay, I don't mean to be rude, but I had a really hard time understanding what you said. She said, and then she's trying to explain and say, oh, I'm sorry, da 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 da, and then and I was like, so where are you from? And she says, sorry. I'm like, oh, that's in England. She's like, yeah. I was like, oh, okay. She's like, but believe me, she's like, I had people to ask me if I was from Australia. I'm like, well, that's crazy. And
that's
you know
funny?
though, it usually what I found is a lot of people get it the wrong way. A lot of people are Australian because it sounds very alike. They think, oh, you're from England. It's like, no, I'm Australian. Like, there's a complete difference. I mean, if you're not educated, you won't know.
Yeah, we have loads of different accents. In the UK, we've got like, loads of different accents here in the UK. You go down London, it's more of like it sounds like me a little bit. I'm from Milton Keynes, which is like 30 minutes away from London, so 34 minutes away from London. So I'm from a little small, I don't know, town, city outside of London, living up north now anyway. So up north, Newcastle, it's a different accent. They're called the Geordies up here, the Geordie accent. Manchester, bit of a different one, bit of a it's called like Mancunian accent, more of a Manny accent. Liverpool, different Scouse,
Yeah.
and obviously Scottish. Even in Scotland, it's not one accent. There's loads of different accents in Scotland. You got the Glaswegians, and you got the Edinburghs. They're all different accents. And then you got people from Aberdeen, which are completely different. And then obviously Ireland as well, different dialects, different accents over there. So it's crazy.
Yeah, I had a guy from the gym, and he's from Scotland, and he's been here, I think, like the last 15 years. So he's not fresh off the boat by any means, but yeah, like even him, he still has the thickest accent I've ever one of the thickest accents I've ever heard. I can understand him, but it's so thick. And I remember
Yeah.
like I had conversations with him. I never really heard him talk just because it gets loud, so I just didn't really hear it. But so I had these conversations and be like, "Hey, how's it going?" And then one of these times, I was just asking if I could work in with him with some machine. He's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And he's like doing his accent. I'm like, "Dude, I'm like, I fucking love your accent." I'm like, "Whereabouts are you from?" I think he said Falkirk, and
Yeah. That's
and I
in
was like,
Scotland,
"Oh,
yeah.
what's that?"
That's in Scotland. Falkirk, yeah, that's in Scotland. Yeah.
Yeah, Falkirk in Scotland, yeah, and I was like, "Man, I love the accent," and I'm like, "That's just," I said, "Yeah, like, my family, pretty much half my family's Scottish." She's like, "Oh, yeah? Where your family from?" I'm like, "I don't know exactly on the point, but, like, they're like, my mom was a Kirkland, so, yeah, like, the Kirklands came here from Scotland," and he's like, "Oh, okay." And he's like, "Well, where's your dad's family from?" I'm like, "Oh, no, we're the proud Irish over here, so we're the fighting Irish on my other side of the family." So, yeah. But yeah, man, it's crazy. Like I'm surprised like how many people I met. But honestly, with Canada, you don't get many people from Europe here anymore. Honestly, a lot of you really don't. Unless if like you just don't hear or see it. But there was a couple girls at the gym, and they sound somewhere from, like, I don't know if they could have been from Ukraine. It makes sense as refugees, but they were either from Ukraine, Russia, or somewhere Eastern Europe. I think that would be right. Eastern Europe is like that region, or from Belarus or somewhere. But they had that same kind of accent, and they're yapping back and forth. And some guy keeps on looking at me. He's like, "I don't know what's hotter, the accent or them." And I was like, "I'm like, bro, just work out, man. Like, come on." But
I bet they were blonde as well.
what's that?
Were they blonde?
You know what though? I think, well, probably dirty blonde, but that counts. Yeah,
There's a big thing about Eastern European girls. They're all blonde and got blue eyes. That's pretty much their
that's
thing over there.
dude. You know what? That's not. I don't think that's a thing. Just I don't think that's something that people say. I think it's true. Like there's a lot of people from Eastern Europe, at least women, and they all seem to be blonde or like fairer skin, lighter hair. Like it just seems to be the thing. But
Very weird, eh? Very weird. But yeah, it's different, isn't it? It's different. That's why I like going to new cultures. You mentioned about obviously there's not many, Brits over there. I remember going to Rome. The amount of Americans that were in Rome is incredible. I know it's a big touristy place. The Colosseums there, etc. But I believe there was actually an American university there, so that's why there was loads there.
well, that's it now, right? Like you look at the modern world now, and everywhere you go, it's everything's so Americanized, like, or Westernized, right? So, like, you can go to, say, if you go to Roma, or you go to somewhere in Italy, and you think, "Oh man, I don't speak Italian. How am I gonna know where to go?" But like everything is so like, even if you go to somewhere in like Asia, they have everything in whatever language, and they'll have in English underneath. So it's been very accommodating. But then again, if you ever listen to like if you ever listen to Shorty on our show, he talked about Japan being like they want people to come there. Like it's tourism, so they want people to make sure that people come and are comfortable, and they want the tourism and all that. So it's yeah, it's interesting how people like, for me, I would have no problem like, for the okay. So the thing is, this is a short part. We're almost running out of time here, but people in Canada, we have Quebec, right? And Quebec's part of Canada, but it's all French Canadian speaking people there,
That's
right?
wild.
And they're very proud of it. And they're like, "Oh, we want to be part of France." Well, I don't think France wants anything to do with them, because French is completely different from French Canadian. It's very similar, and I'm sure they could have a conversation. But what I learned in school going to France, I'm sure I could understand a little bit. But if I try to speak, I'm sure the dialect is so different that they look at me, I'm like a pest on the side of the road, right? Because they'd be like, you're not speaking our language, dude." So
So I know a little bit of French as well, obviously, coming through school as well. So I'd walk up to them and be like, "Je m'appelle Lenny," huh?
um je m'appelle Luke. Yeah.
Yeah, see, I know
Yeah,
what you
there you
mean.
go. So we know a little bit of our French. Come on, come on. Anyway, guys, we're running out of time here. Lenny, it's a pleasure having you on here, as my first guest, actually, and this is fun, and it only goes up from here. And but I appreciate you taking the time here, and hopefully, for people again, um, we obviously have our MMA Unhinged, so make sure you check that out as well. Make sure you like and subscribe on the Roundtable Unfiltered on YouTube. And episodes will be uploaded in the future. So be sure to like and subscribe. and we'll see you guys next time. And Lenny, thank you again for taking the time, and we'll see you guys next time.
Always a pleasure, my man.